Wilson from LaxAllStars.com. We've got a bunch of requests through Traditional Thursdays to do a Pita Pocket tutorial. So here we are. Here's your basic Pita Pocket. Okay, you've got two runners down the middle, two leathers. These are brought with a system of twists. Okay, and then you have typical outside triangles. Creates a little better channel pocket than your typical traditional stick might. It's been referred to as the dog track. It was made famous when a lot of Loyola players were using it back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I believe. It was really popular with their team, and those guys could certainly rip the ball. So the dog track, the Pita Pocket, it's got a bunch of different names. It's still traditional when it comes down to it at the end of the day. But we're going to show you how to do a pretty basic setup. It's not necessarily the way to string a Pita Pocket, but it is certainly a way to string a Pita Pocket, and it's one that I've found works out pretty well. So the first part that we're going to look at, obviously you're going to have to get your leathers in there. Okay. Now on this gate head, you've got a bunch of different scoop holes. Okay, so you can really put those leathers right next to each other in the middle, which makes it easy. Can't complain about that. But let's try it on a head that's not like that, just to show you how that might work. So today I've got a blue, purple STX Superpower. Okay. This is Joel Taliento's head. He's a club lacrosse player at Binghamton University. So he's going to get a Pita Pocket in this stick. I don't know if he knows that, but now he does. So let's start out a little bit, and the first thing we want to cover are these two middles. I've done my typical teardrop top string, where you've got little pieces of lace holding the leathers on. One thing that does happen sometimes is that these can sag or they can bump out. So when I do my middle, when I do that spiral weave down the middle with these two leathers, I want to make sure that there's some tension up here. So the way that I do it definitely informs that. So you're going to take out, I use two separate pieces of cross lace to do the middle portion. So I put a double knot in one. If you're doing a Pita Pocket, hopefully you know how to do a double knot by now. Okay, I'm going to run it through the top hole in the sidewall, through that leather, through this leather. Okay. And as you can see, as you begin to pull it through, you already get a little bit of tension on these leathers. And since they're kind of floating up top, I find that that's really helpful in terms of creating a really strong pocket up top. And you don't want it to throw off the plastic, and you don't want it to lip off the shooter. You want it to be a smooth, consistent release. At least most people do. So, this is really the best way I've found to do that, especially if you're going to use that top string, is to begin each of these on the outside and then run through that little gap up top. As you can see, this head is obviously already has leathers in it and has sidewall in it. So those are your first two steps when you're doing a pocket. Okay, so you can pause the video right now. You can put in your leathers. Okay, you can even do this top string. Okay, you can do that first. In fact, you should do that first, really. And then you put your sidewalls in. Okay, I put in, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to give me either a 6 or 7 diamond Pita. Same thing when I do the sidewalls. If I want a 5 diamond pocket, I'm going to put in 5 sidewall loops. Okay, if I want an 8 diamond pocket, I'm going to put in 8 sidewall loops. It makes it a little easier. Okay, it makes it a little simpler in your mind. Okay, and it also creates better tension. You don't want to have a sidewall loop without a piece of traditional cross lace attached to it. Okay, so now we've got this. We're set up here. Okay, so we're going to start weaving, and that is really simple. Okay, take this piece, go over that piece. Take this piece, go over that piece. Take this piece, go over that piece. Okay? You can do that 3 times, you can do it 4 times, you can do it 5 times. Obviously, the more times you do it, the bigger your gap is going to be and the bigger your diamonds are going to be. Okay? Now, when I do this, I'm thinking, what's my next step? My next step is that I'm going to have to go from here over to here, okay? And I want to be able to go on the top side, okay, around the top, as opposed to underneath, okay? So I'm going to go underneath with all of these. So once I get here, that means, I lost that. All right, so got it back. So from here, okay, I'm on my side, okay, the front side. So go around and over. Pull that through. Okay, since I went around and over on this side, I'm going to go around and over on this side as well. The pita pocket, unlike a traditional, really should be, as unique, as uniform on both sides as possible. Okay, so I've got that one done. Pull this one tight. All right, so now I have my first set. Okay, now if I went over with the left one and under with the right on the top, I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, I'm going to go over and then under, over and then under. You get a better view like this. Okay, so however I did that, the loops before, I'm going to do it the same way here. Okay, so last time I was here, right, from the face of the stick, right, I went here, okay, over it, under it, and back through. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing here, right? Around the front. Looks a little weird, doesn't it? Until you do the second one. Don't worry about that. Just make sure that your tension is even. As long as they're both the same tightness and they're both pretty tight, you're probably going to be good to go. You can go back in later on and make sure that everything is perfect. And we'll get to that. Okay, so there you've got 2. And you're just going to continue to do this the entire way down the middle of the stick. And we'll show you, once that's done, I'll give you a final product view of that. So we finished up this middle track, didn't take too long. Okay, you can see that. Right. Okay, each one is more or less the same. I actually made a mistake. Oh my gosh. Right here. So this is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. This one I only did 2. I must have made a mistake, okay, in my rush to make a video. Such is life. If you're doing this for the first time, don't be afraid to go back and do it again. Now, I personally think that I can make this little mistake work, and I'm going to try not to make any others in this head. Otherwise it should stick around. It should stand up to the test of time. But if you do make mistakes, it is worth it to go back and fix them. Okay. So here I've loosened up this middle leather. I finished that, ran it down a little further. Okay, and this is going to allow me to now put the pocket in so that I can keep these side leathers, which are nice and tight, really pretty low, really pretty snug to the side of the pocket. That's one of the benefits that you want to get out of a pita pocket, is having that kind of middle be a little distended from the side leathers. Okay, that's going to give you a little more channel, a little more control, a little more hold without any of that whip that makes shooting impossible. Okay, you want to avoid that. So now you've got this. Okay, you can see how even though this is looser, this top part, right, this top part is still pretty tight. Okay, and it's still already holding those leathers down. So the next step is going to be to connect one single piece that will run through this leather right here, down this sidewall, and then we'll connect this leather to this middle area, okay, in this gap right here. So that's our next step. Now we want to get in this second outer layer of cross lace. You'll definitely find that you want a longer piece here. So for these two middles, okay, each of these, right, they're separate pieces. Each of them is probably an arm's length, right? So you go out, hold the spool here on the shoulder, pull it out. Okay, that's about how long it needs to be. This piece, okay, that's going to go from here and here, could probably be a little longer. It might be an arm's length and a half. Okay, so you're probably looking at 4.5 feet, 4 feet, something like that. While the middle, you can probably get away with about 3 feet. So again, what I'm going to do to start this off is I'm going to run it through this leather. Okay, leave it there. Okay, see how it's sitting and hanging in that leather, the same place that I put this piece, right, the middle piece. Okay, so I'm going to pull this down. I want the portion that's going to go through the middle here to be longer than the sidewall portion. Your sidewall cross lace, the one that attaches from the first leather in, over to the sidewall, is going to be pretty short. It's going to be pretty tight because you want to keep that sidewall tight. Okay, so here you'll see, do this. Okay, so on this I went underneath the leather, right? I went from here, I went on this side first, then around here, back through and down, okay? So that means I need to do the opposite here to get that proper interlock, which will lock your cross lace into the location you want it. So I'm going to go from the back side of the head, over, through, and around. Some people like to let these tabs float out of their sticks. I like to lock them down. I feel like that gives my leather a little more of a solid position. Okay. Now on this other side, we've got that first lock done. On the other side, when we're going to connect to this leather, I'm going to go underneath the leather, okay, and then back around. That way when I do the sidewall, I can go over. I find that it's easier when you keep the stick facing one way to go under the first time you connect to a leather. That way you can stick the string over the next time you connect to the leather. To each their own. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. But in terms of ease of stringing, I've found that that's a pretty useful tip. So this next one, again, I'm going to go right through the hole. Okay? And getting it through is key. You can't just wrap it around the leather and hope it's going to join up. Okay, there is a right way to do it. Let's get it nice and tight here. Okay? So see how you've got this lock. Very well done. Sorry, don't mean to flip you guys off. Right? You got this lock. There's this little gap on the other side of it. I'm going to force this piece of string through that gap. And then pull it around and out. If you get like a bunch like that, see? Make sure you pull it through tight. You can always go back and loosen the string again later. But you do not want to have those bunches, where the string starts to get a little funky on you. Okay? So there we've got two. Alright, now I'm going to go here again. What am I going to do? I'm going under. Right? Because that makes it easier the next time when I have to go over. Okay, again, here we'll get this from the other side, see how it comes through. And that's what gets you that interlock. Okay? Pull it there. Come back around. Interlock. Boom. Okay? I'm going to finish up this side, this portion here, and then we'll come back, talk about the sidewall a little bit. Okay, so we finished this middle part. All right? You can see that. You might look at that and say, that is so ugly. None of the string is taut. It's all over the place. How is that ever going to work? Well, as long as your knots are correct and they're put in the right places, initial tension, I'm telling you, is not that important. At least not the way I string it. Okay, I do take a freehand approach. I'm not using a stringing tool kit thing. I'm not putting a ball in there. Okay, I'm just making sure that the knots are placed correctly and done correctly. Okay, and that everything is kind of in the relative realm of tightness that I'm going to want. And I'll show you why I do this later. And this is what really is going to allow you to control your pocket and how exactly the ball sits in it, where you want it to sit, whether it's high or low or anything in between. Okay, so we will get to that. But this is the way I do it, and if you want to learn, you gotta listen. Like I said, initially, this is a way to do it. It's not the only way. There are other ways out there. Okay, so now I'm going to take this other piece, right, and it's here. So let's try and make that as tight as we can. Not as tight as we can. That might be overkill. Make it relatively tight. Okay, doesn't really matter which way you go in. Now it's easy. I can go over on this side, so I'm also going to go over here. Some people will tell you that matters. I have not found that to be the case. So there's one attached from the leather to the sidewall. And this you want to do as tight as you can. These are your final knots, your final interlocks on each side. So make this nice and tight. No reason not to. Nice and tight. Go down again through the sidewall. Nice and tight. Right? There's this lace. Let's lock that leather in there. Nice and tight. Nice and tight. Once again, right? They're coming to locking down this leather on the sidewall. Nice and tight. That can be your go-to phrase. Just keep that in mind always, and you should be all right. Now again, you're going to run into some situations where these knots will look a little funky to you. Things are loose and they're not sitting the right way. You're starting to get worried. It's fair. I can tell you it's not. Okay, that is fair to be concerned about. But I'm also telling you it's going to work out in your favor. So stick with it. I went really short on this sidewall on this piece of cross lace. I might have to retighten it or move it around a little bit. Such is life. I've been doing this for years and years, and as you can see from my explanations, I still make mistakes. Everybody does. At least everybody I know. Everybody is human. Such is life. You're going to make mistakes. So, not the end of the world. But here we've got this. Okay, this is all strung up. That leather is still very tight with a traditional set of traditional knots. Your standard set of sidewall knots. So I'll come back once I have this second side done. Put another piece in here, move this around, make sure it's all getting to fit. Okay, and then we'll go into how you can actually create your pocket from a messy knotted setup. All right. All right. Now we've got this entire thing strung up technically correct. And like I said, that's kind of the most important thing for a pita pocket or any traditional, in my opinion, it is to get the knots right first and have everything set up the correct way. These leathers have been loose for a little while. I'm going to make them a little bit looser. These yellow leathers have been tight. I'm going to make them just a little bit looser as well. So instead of hanging, inside, they're going to hang outside a little bit. So again, I'm probably only letting 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch out on the yellow outer leathers. Let's go with about a 1/2 inch. Okay, so that creates a little bit more of a pocket right there. Not bad. Let's let the white ones out. They've probably been let out an inch already, and now I'm going to let them out another 1/2 inch. Okay. That's a little more reasonable pocket size, I think. So let's tie the leathers back down. Start to work some of the kinks out of this pocket. Because like I said, when you focus on knots first, there will be kinks. There will be areas of uneven tension. You'll run into some other problems. So let's see if we can address some of those. This is all a freehand string job. Okay. Now as I push out, I'm going to notice that, these bottom ones have really jumped up. So the first thing I want to do before I start going through and tightening things is actually moving my diamonds a little bit. I'm just making sure that each diamond is in the correct place. Okay, it's where you want it to be. It's where you want it to sit. Okay, and then you can worry, and having looser strings at this point actually helps you move them. You don't have to pull tightness up or down from anywhere. It is what it is, and it's set. Okay, so now we're pretty good to go. I'm going to start off first. My first move to finish and tighten things and lock things down to where I want them to stay is to really attack this middle track. Okay. So what I like to do is I finish this with your standard interlock at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to run this one again. If it ran under and then over. Now I'm going to run it over and under. That creates a neat little lock like that. Okay, so this one you can see I went under the leather and then back over. So now I'm going to go over the leather, back under, and through. Okay, so those are two little neat locks. So you want to do that one more time? Why not? It's just going to lock it down a little bit more. Okay, so you have one more where you went over, came back through. So you got those locks in the back. That's what it looks like in the front. Okay, and just for ease, what am I going to do with these? I don't know. I'm just going to tie them in a knot. Okay, and I'm not going to use the loop knot where you kind of tie them, tie one over the other and then the other over the other. Okay, all I'm going to do is your standard one of these. Pull that tight. Okay, that's just whoop, whoop, both strings going right together. Okay, it's a great way to lock it down. So my middle is starting to look a little bit better. That's a good thing. Okay, it's pretty centered. Okay, it's right down the middle. As you can see, I mean they do go kind of all over. Okay. Now we fix that. So how do we fix that? What I like to do, take a chopstick. These are wooden chopsticks. You get them with takeout Chinese food in New York. I'm sure you get them everywhere else. So you should have access to these. Okay. Butter knife works okay. Problem with a butter knife is it's metal, sharp, and if you put it in through the sidewalls, it can eventually lead to sidewall fraying. You might want to avoid that. Okay, so I'm going to put this in right where I think Joel wants his pocket. Now I know Joel, and I think he's going to like a mid to high pocket. Okay, so I have my chopstick in there, put the ball in at the bottom, or you can put it above. And you're going to pull out on the chopstick as you roll the ball underneath it. Wow, you're going to say that's ugly. And it is. Okay, but would I know that? Okay, so I need to center the ball a little bit. There we go, that's not bad. A little better. And now I'm going to go through, and you can see how loose this is. Right? Too loose. Okay? You can see how tight this is. Maybe it's a little too tight. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to make sure that those two are even. I'm going to get this top portion through here. Okay, right here, wherever my hand is. All of that stuff I want to be really pretty tight. Maybe not, super tight where it's stretching the leathers and pulling them apart, but taut. T-A-U-T. Taut. A la tato. Okay, we got any sailors out there? You know what that means. Okay, if you don't, you got Google. Use it. So I'm going to go through, and when you see it next, you're going to see how I've kind of pulled everything tight around the ball, and that's going to give me a pocket exactly where I want it. I've gone through and tightened all these strings up. Pita pocket is more or less ready to go. Okay, it's much more even. Still probably needs some adjusting. You can see it's a little tilted to one side. It's alright. I'm going to have to go through and tighten these and loosen these just a little bit as I mess with it and as it settles in. That's life with a traditional, at least a good one. You may have to do a little settling. If you are a perfect stringer, you might not. But if you're doing your first time, okay, I've been doing this for a couple of years, and my first time, if this were my first time, I would show no hesitation to go back through and make some changes and loosen some strings. Okay, one key, leave your strings a little bit long. It just allows you a little bit more room for error. I did not have that room for error on this one, but I made it work. Okay, again, I've been doing this for a long time, so there's some little tricks, stuff like that. But really, you want to try and do it as right as you can. So try and leave some extra string. You can always use this. Like this string, for example, is so long. Ooh, it's going to go on forever. That I can then cut it, right here, and then use that for my top nylon shooting string. So always think about recycling as well. Basically, this pocket is going to take some time to break in. Okay, it's got 6 to 7 diamonds in it, so it's going to take some time. Those leathers are going to need to stretch out just a bit, but overall, you've got a pretty solid pita pocket. So those are the basics. Again here, look at this. Even this one, this is a little high. Okay, I'm going to try and bump that down. So when it settles, when you start getting these worn-in notches around your leathers, that's what happens. The crosslace constricts the leather and creates a little notch in it. Okay, when they settle, you want them to be pretty even. So I'm gonna have to tweak this one. Such is life. You got to tweak your sticks, especially if you want something special. And a pita pocket is that. Okay, it's very special. It's fantastic. It's just as good as traditional, and in my opinion, better than mesh. But yeah, so those are the basics. If you got questions, shoot them into us. info@lacrosseallstars.com. I'll be back on Thursday. I'll be back every Thursday with Traditional Thursdays. Answering questions, talking about traditional, giving you some tips, trying to help you enter the world of leather and lace. It's a beautiful world. Have a great day. Hit the wall, string some sticks, play lacrosse, enjoy yourself. I hope this helped. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Email us. We'll try and help you out.